Will you stay if I undress? The widow asked after the cowboy saved her in the river. The San Pedro River ran high and angry that spring of 1887, swollen by snowmelt from the Huachuca Mountains and days of hard rain that turned the desert trails to gumbo. Elena Vasquez had known better than to attempt the crossing alone, but the telegram from Tucson had been urgent. Her late husband's cousin lay dying and needed her signature on papers before the bank foreclosed on the ranchito both families had shared. Pride, stubbornness, and a touch of desperation pushed her onward. She hitched her skirt high, urged the old mare into the current, and felt the river take hold almost immediately. The mare stumbled on a hidden boulder. Elena's foot slipped from the stirrup. One moment she was clinging to the saddle horn. The next, the river had her, cold as a grave, tumbling her over and over until her lungs burned and the sky became a blurred green ceiling above her. She did not see the rider coming. Jack Harlan had been trailing a stray longhorn along the cottonwood fringe when he heard the horse scream and the woman's choked cry. He spurred his dun gelding down the bank without thinking, the way a man does when life narrows to a single instant. He hit the water hard, boots and all, hat sailing away downstream. The current was stronger than it looked, but Jack had grown up swimming the Brazos in flood season. He struck out in long, powerful strokes, caught a flash of dark hair and calico, and closed the distance. His arm hooked around Elena's waist just as she broke the surface, gasping. She fought him at first. Panic makes people do that, clawing at his shirt until he growled in her ear, "Easy, ma'am. I got you. Stop fighting, or we both drown." She went limp then, trusting or simply spent, and he hauled her toward the shallows. The mare had already scrambled up the far bank, shaking like a wet dog. Jack's boots found purchase on slick gravel. He carried Elena the last 10 yards and laid her on the sandy bar beneath a stand of willows. She coughed, retched river water, and rolled onto her side. Jack knelt, unsure what to do with his hands. Her black hair was plastered to her face. Her lips were blue. The calico dress clung to her like a second skin, soaked through and heavy. "You hurt?" he asked. She shook her head, teeth chattering. "Just cold." He glanced at the sky. The sun was dropping behind the mountains, and the wind off the water cut like a skinning knife. A man could die of exposure out here quicker than from a bullet. "Your horse is on the other side," he said. "My camp's half a mile downstream. Fire, coffee, dry blankets. We need to get you warm." She tried to stand and swayed. He caught her elbow. She was taller than he expected, nearly to his chin, and even soaked she carried herself straight, like someone used to giving orders. "I can walk," she said. "Not yet, you can't." He scooped her up again. There wasn't time for argument, and carried her to where his dun waited patiently. He set her sideways in the saddle, swung up behind, and wrapped his sheepskin coat around her. She stiffened at the closeness, but didn't protest. The horse picked its way along the river trail while the light bled out of the sky. Jack's camp was simple, a small fire ringed with stones, bedroll, saddle, and coffee pot. He'd been riding the drift alone for 3 weeks, looking for strays and avoiding towns. He helped Elena down, sat her on a log, and went to work building the fire higher. She watched him in silence. He was tall, lean through the shoulders, with the kind of quiet competence that came from long years in the saddle. His face was weathered, a thin scar running from his left ear to the corner of his mouth. He hadn't shaved in days. When he glanced up, his eyes were pale gray, startling against sun-browned skin. "You got a name?" he asked, feeding mesquite branches to the flames. "Elena Vasquez." Her voice was steadier now. "And you?" "Jack Harlan." She nodded as if filing it away. "I owe you my life, Mr. Harlan." "Just Jack." The fire caught and roared up. Heat rolled over them. Steam began to rise from her dress. Jack cleared his throat. "Begging your pardon, ma'am, but that dress is soaked clean through. You'll take a chill if you keep it on." He turned his back deliberately, busying himself with the coffee pot. "I got an extra shirt and a pair of trousers in my war bag. They'll swallow you whole, but they're dry. And there's a blanket you can wrap in while things dry out." Silence stretched. He could feel her staring at his back. Finally she said, very quietly, "Turn around, Jack." He did, slowly. She was standing now, fingers on the top button of her bodice. The firelight painted gold across her wet skin and turned her dark eyes almost black. "Will you stay if I undress?" she asked. The words hung between them like gun smoke. Jack's mouth went dry. He had seen plenty in his 34 years, saloon girls and nothing but feathers, Apache women bathing in hidden springs, but nothing had ever struck him quite like this widow's direct gaze. "I ain't going anywhere till you're warm and safe," he said carefully. "But I'll turn my back again if that's what you want." A faint smile touched her mouth. "I think I've had enough of backs turned on me." She began unbuttoning. Jack stood rooted, unsure where to look. In the end, he kept his eyes on hers, because looking away felt cowardly and staring lower felt wrong. The bodice parted, the dress slid down her shoulders and pulled at her feet. She stepped out of it wearing only a thin cotton chemise, equally soaked and clinging. Gooseflesh covered her arms. Jack swallowed hard. "Here." He pulled his spare shirt from the bag, blue flannel, soft from many washings, and held it out. She took it, but didn't put it on yet. Instead, she reached for the hem of the chemise. "Elena," he said, voice rough. "You don't owe me anything." "Not like that." "I know what I owe and what I don't," she replied. "But a woman nearly drowned today. She wants to feel alive again. And you're the first man in 3 years who's looked at me like I'm something more than a widow in black." She pulled the chemise over her head in one motion and stood naked in the firelight. Jack had imagined women in his lonely nights on the range, but imagination was a pale thing. Elena Vasquez was 31, mother of a child who died in infancy, widow of a man gunned down over a card game. Grief had thinned her face, but her body was strong from ranch work, full breasts, narrow waist, hips flared for bearing children that never came again. River water still gleamed on her skin. He took a step closer, then stopped. "You sure?" "I'm sure I don't want to be cold anymore," she said. "And I'm sure I don't want to be alone tonight." That was all the permission he needed. He crossed the space between them, cupped her face in calloused hands, and kissed her. She tasted of river water and coffee and something fierce. Her arms went around his neck. His hands slid down the smooth curve of her back. The fire crackled beside them. Somewhere an owl called. They sank to his bedroll without hurry. Jack took his time, as if she were skittish as a colt. He kissed the hollow of her throat, the slope of each breast, the faint silver lines on her belly where life had stretched her once. She arched beneath him, fingers tangled in his hair, whispering his name like a prayer. When he entered her, she gasped and clung tight. They moved together slow at first, then urgent, chasing warmth and forgetting death. The stars wheeled overhead unnoticed. Afterward, they lay wrapped in the blanket, her head on his shoulder. The fire settled into embers. "I haven't felt wanted since before Tomas died," she murmured. Jack traced idle circles on her shoulder. "I reckon you're wanted plenty. Just maybe not by the right man." She laughed softly. "And you're the right one? I ain't claiming to be anything but a drifter with a rope and a horse." "That's enough for tonight." They dozed, woke, made love again more slowly, learning each other's rhythms. Near dawn, she dressed in his oversized shirt and trousers, rolling the sleeves and cuffs. He brewed fresh coffee. They sat side by side watching the river turn rose gold with sunrise. Her mare had wandered downstream during the night and stood grazing peacefully. Jack caught her, checked the cinch on Elena's battered side saddle. "I can ride with you to Tucson if you like," he offered. She studied him over the rim of her tin cup. "And after Tucson?" He shrugged. "Got strays to find. A man's got to eat." Elena set the cup down. "My ranchito sits on 90 acres of good grass. The house wants paint and the corrals need mending, but the well's sweet, and there's a peach orchard my husband planted the year before he died. It's too much land for one woman alone." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You offering me a job, Mrs. Vasquez?" "I'm offering you a place to light, Mr. Harlan. If you want it." He looked at the river, then at her. The scar on his cheek twitched when he smiled. "I reckon I could stand to stay a spell. Long as you don't mind a man who's better with cattle than conversation." "I've had enough conversation," she said. "I'd rather have quiet that feels safe." They rode out together, her mare and his dun side by side. Behind them, the campfire burned down to white ash. Ahead, the trail wound through mesquite and saguaro toward the little adobe house with the peeling green door. Years later, when people asked how Jack Harlan finally hung up his drifting boots, Elena would smile and say only, "He pulled me from the river." She never told the rest. Some stories belong only to the two who lived them, and to the night the San Pedro almost took her and gave her something better instead.